The veterinarian stumbled backward from the ultrasound machine, his face drained of color as two distinct heartbeats pulsed across the screen. Emma's giant white mare was carrying twins, and in the horse world, that discovery meant only one thing: something had to die. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. The morning sun cast long golden rays across the rolling hills of Kentucky horse country, illuminating the vast green pastures of Meadowbrook Farm like a painting come to life. This was no ordinary farm. For 3 generations, the Harrison family had bred some of the finest draft horses in the entire country, their bloodline sought after by farmers and equestrian enthusiasts from coast to coast. But among all the magnificent creatures that called Meadowbrook home, there was one horse that stood apart from the rest, a mare so extraordinary that locals would drive miles just to catch a glimpse of her towering form against the morning sky. Her name was Athena, and she was nothing short of a legend. Standing at an incredible 19 hands high, she was the largest Percheron mare anyone in the county had ever seen. Her coat was a pristine white that seemed to glow in the sunlight, and her mane flowed like silk, cascading down her powerful neck. When she walked, the ground seemed to tremble beneath her hooves, yet there was a gentleness in her dark eyes that made even the most nervous visitors feel at ease. Athena was more than just a horse to the Harrison family. She was the heart and soul of Meadowbrook Farm. Emma Harrison had known Athena since the day she was born. Now 28 years old, Emma had grown up alongside the magnificent mare, and the bond between them was something that words could barely describe. As a child, Emma would spend hours in the pasture with Athena, braiding flowers into her mane and whispering secrets that only the two of them would ever know. When Emma's mother passed away during her teenage years, it was Athena who provided comfort during those dark, lonely nights. The mare seemed to understand Emma's grief in ways that no human could, standing silently beside her as tears fell onto the dewy grass. Now Emma ran the farm alongside her father, Thomas, a weathered man of 62, whose love for horses had been passed down through generations. But recently, Thomas had been struggling with his health, and the burden of keeping Meadowbrook afloat had fallen largely on Emma's shoulders. The farm had seen better days. Rising costs and declining sales had pushed them to the brink of financial ruin, and there were whispers in town that the Harrisons might have to sell their beloved property before the year was out. That was why Athena's pregnancy meant everything to them. 6 months ago, they had made the decision to breed Athena with Champion's Glory, a prize-winning stallion from a farm in Virginia. The breeding fee alone had cost them nearly everything they had left in savings, but Thomas believed it was worth the risk. A foal from Athena's bloodline could fetch a price high enough to save Meadowbrook and secure the farm's future for another generation. It was a gamble, but it was the only card they had left to play. From the moment they confirmed Athena's pregnancy, Emma had watched over her with the devotion of a mother hen. She checked on the mare first thing every morning and last thing every night, monitoring her diet, her exercise, her mood. Everything seemed to be progressing normally at first. Athena's belly grew round and full, and the veterinarian's initial examinations had shown a healthy pregnancy developing right on schedule. But as the weeks passed, something began to change. It started subtly. Athena's appetite increased dramatically, far more than what was typical for a pregnant mare. She seemed to tire more easily during their walks, and her belly grew at a rate that even Emma found alarming. By the 5th month, Athena looked like she was ready to give birth at any moment, her massive frame struggling to accommodate the life growing within her. Emma mentioned her concerns to her father, but Thomas simply smiled and patted her shoulder reassuringly. Athena was a large horse, after all. It stood to reason that she would carry a large foal. But Emma could not shake the feeling that something was different this time. She had been around pregnant mares her entire life, and there was something about Athena's condition that did not sit right with her. The mare moved differently now, more carefully, as if she was carrying a burden far heavier than a single foal should be. At night, when Emma checked on her in the barn, she would find Athena standing in her stall with her head lowered, breathing heavily, as if the simple act of supporting her own weight had become an exhausting ordeal. It was on a Tuesday morning in late spring when Emma finally decided to call Dr. Michael Reynolds, the most respected equine veterinarian in the region. Dr. Reynolds had been caring for the horses at Meadowbrook for over 20 years, and there was no one Emma trusted more with Athena's well-being. She explained her concerns over the phone, her voice trembling slightly as she described the mare's unusual symptoms. Dr. Reynolds listened carefully, asked a few questions, and then told Emma that he would come out to the farm that very afternoon to perform a comprehensive ultrasound examination. The hours until his arrival seemed to stretch on forever. Emma tried to occupy herself with the usual farm chores, but her mind kept wandering back to Athena and the mysterious changes in her condition. She found herself standing at the fence of the mare's pasture, watching as Athena grazed slowly in the morning light. Even from a distance, Emma could see how much her beloved horse had changed. The mare's belly hung low and heavy, and she moved with a careful, measured gait that spoke of discomfort and exhaustion. When the familiar rumble of Dr. Reynolds' truck finally echoed down the long gravel driveway, Emma felt her heart leap into her throat. She met him at the barn entrance, her hands wringing nervously at her sides. The veterinarian stepped out of his vehicle with his usual calm demeanor, but Emma noticed the slight furrow in his brow as he caught sight of Athena standing in her stall. Without a word, he retrieved his ultrasound equipment from the back of the truck and followed Emma into the barn. His assistant, Sarah, a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle touch, helped prepare Athena for the examination. The mare stood patiently as they positioned the equipment, her dark eyes finding Emma's across the stall. In that moment, Emma felt a surge of emotion so powerful that tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. Whatever happened next, she silently promised Athena, they would face it together. But nothing could have prepared any of them for what the ultrasound screen was about to reveal. As Dr. Reynolds pressed the probe against Athena's swollen belly and the first images flickered to life on the monitor, his face went pale. Sarah gasped, her hands flying to cover her mouth in shock. And Emma Harrison's world was about to change forever. The silence in the barn was deafening. Dr. Reynolds stood frozen before the ultrasound monitor, his eyes wide and unblinking as he stared at the images flickering across the screen. In all his years of veterinary practice, through thousands of examinations and countless surprises, he had never seen anything quite like what he was witnessing now. His hand trembled slightly as he adjusted the probe, moving it slowly across Athena's massive belly to confirm what his eyes were telling him. But no matter how many times he repositioned the equipment, the impossible truth remained unchanged on the glowing screen before him. Emma stepped forward, her heart pounding so loudly in her chest that she was certain everyone in the barn could hear it. She tried to read the expression on Dr. Reynolds' face, searching for some clue about what he had discovered, but his features had settled into a mask of professional concentration that revealed nothing. The seconds stretched into what felt like hours as Emma waited for someone to speak, to explain why the atmosphere in the barn had suddenly become so heavy with unspoken tension. It was Sarah who broke the silence first. The young veterinary assistant pointed at the screen with a shaking finger, her voice barely above a whisper when she finally found the words. "There are two of them," she breathed, her eyes darting between Dr. Reynolds and Emma. "Doctor, there are two heartbeats. I can see two separate forms." Emma felt the blood drain from her face as the meaning of Sarah's words slowly sank in. Two. Athena was not carrying one foal. She was carrying twins. Dr. Reynolds finally turned to face Emma, and in his eyes she saw a mixture of wonder and concern that made her stomach clench with fear. He removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose, a gesture Emma had come to recognize over the years as his way of collecting his thoughts before delivering difficult news. "Emma," he began slowly, his voice measured and careful, "what we are looking at here is something extraordinarily rare. Twin pregnancies in horses occur in less than 1% of all conceptions, and the vast majority of those are terminated naturally by the mare's body within the first few weeks." Emma nodded numbly, her mind struggling to process the information. She had heard stories about twin pregnancies in horses before. Everyone in the breeding community had. They were spoken of in hushed tones, cautionary tales whispered between breeders about the dangers and complications that almost always followed. Twin pregnancies in horses were not like twin pregnancies in humans. They were considered one of the most dangerous conditions a mare could face, often ending in tragedy for both mother and foals. But Dr. Reynolds was not finished. He turned back to the screen and pointed at the two distinct forms visible in the ultrasound image. His finger traced the outline of each foal as he continued his explanation, his voice taking on an edge of disbelief that he could not quite hide. "What makes this case even more remarkable," he said, "is the size and development of these twins. In most cases where twin pregnancies progress past the early stages, one or both foals are severely underdeveloped due to competition for resources within the womb. But these two," he paused, shaking his head slowly, "these two appear to be thriving. They are both large, well-formed, and from what I can see, perfectly healthy." Emma moved closer to the screen, her eyes fixed on the miraculous image before her. She could see them now, two tiny forms curled together in the safety of Athena's womb. Two heartbeats pulsed in steady rhythm on the monitor, a symphony of life that seemed to defy everything she had ever been taught about equine reproduction. For a moment, the fear and worry that had gripped her heart gave way to something else entirely. Wonder. Pure, overwhelming wonder at the miracle that was growing inside her beloved mare. But the moment of awe was short-lived. Dr. Reynolds placed a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder, his expression grave as he prepared to explain the full weight of what they were facing. "Emma, I need you to understand the risks involved here," he said quietly. "Twin pregnancies in horses are incredibly dangerous, even under the best circumstances. The mare's uterus is simply not designed to support two foals to full term. There is significant risk of premature birth, developmental problems, and complications during delivery that could threaten the lives of all three animals." Emma felt tears welling in her eyes as the reality of the situation began to settle over her like a heavy blanket. She looked at Athena, who stood patiently in her stall, completely unaware of the storm of emotions swirling around her. The mare's dark eyes met Emma's with the same gentle trust they had always held, and Emma felt her heart break at the thought of all the dangers that lay ahead. How could she protect Athena from something like this? How could she keep her safe when the threat came from within her own body? Dr. Reynolds continued, his voice soft but firm. "In most cases, when twin pregnancies are detected early enough, we recommend a procedure to terminate one of the embryos. This gives the remaining foal a much better chance of survival and significantly reduces the risk to the mare." "But Emma," he paused, his brow furrowing as he studied the ultrasound image once more. "These foals are too far along for that option. They have developed too much for us to safely intervene. Whatever happens now, we are committed to seeing this pregnancy through to the end." The words hung in the air like a sentence, final and irrevocable. Emma felt the weight of them pressing down on her shoulders, adding to the burden of worry and responsibility that had already been threatening to crush her. She thought of her father, waiting back at the house, unaware of the news that would soon turn their carefully laid plans upside down. She thought of the farm, already teetering on the edge of financial ruin, and how this unexpected complication could push them over the edge entirely. But most of all, she thought of Athena, her oldest friend, her most faithful companion, now facing a challenge that could cost her everything. Emma reached out and placed her hand against the mare's warm neck, feeling the steady pulse of life beneath her palm. "Whatever comes next," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "we will face it together. I promise you that, girl. I will not let you face this alone." And as if she understood every word, Athena lowered her great head and pressed it gently against Emma's chest, her breath warm and comforting against Emma's trembling body. The walk back to the farmhouse felt like the longest journey of Emma's life. Each step seemed to carry the weight of the impossible news she now had to deliver to her father, and with every passing moment, the burden grew heavier. The afternoon sun had begun its slow descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed far too beautiful for a day that had brought such overwhelming uncertainty. Emma paused at the white picket fence that surrounded the house, her hand resting on the weathered wood as she gathered the courage to face what lay ahead. Through the kitchen window, she could see her father sitting at the old oak table, the same table where 3 generations of Harrisons had shared meals, celebrated victories, and weathered storms together. Thomas was bent over a stack of papers, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose as he studied what Emma knew were the farm's financial records. Even from this distance, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the worry lines that had deepened across his forehead in recent months. How could she add to his burdens with news like this? But there was no avoiding it. Dr. Reynolds had been clear that Athena's condition required immediate and intensive monitoring. They would need to prepare for every possible outcome, and that meant her father needed to know the truth. Emma took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and pushed open the back door. The familiar creak of the hinges announced her arrival, and Thomas looked up from his papers with a tired smile that made Emma's heart ache. "How is our girl doing?" he asked, removing his glasses and setting them on the table. "Dr. Reynolds, get everything sorted out." Emma pulled out a chair and sat down across from her father, her hands clasped tightly in her lap to keep them from trembling. She had rehearsed this moment a dozen times on the walk from the barn, but now that she was here, all the carefully chosen words seemed to evaporate from her mind. She looked into her father's eyes, those kind blue eyes that had guided her through every challenge she had ever faced, and felt the tears she had been holding back finally begin to fall. Thomas leaned forward, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern in an instant. "Emma, what is it? What did the doctor find? Is Athena all right?" The questions tumbled out in rapid succession, each one laced with the fear that every horse breeder carries in their heart. Emma reached across the table and took her father's weathered hands in her own, feeling the calluses and scars that told the story of a lifetime spent working the land. "Dad," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "Athena is carrying twins." The words hung in the air between them, and Emma watched as their meaning slowly registered on her father's face. She saw confusion give way to disbelief, then disbelief transform into something that looked almost like fear. Thomas sat back in his chair, his hands slipping from Emma's grasp as he ran them through his thinning gray hair. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway, counting off the seconds of silence that stretched between father and daughter. "Twins," Thomas finally repeated, his voice hollow. "In all my years, I have never seen a mare carry twins to term. Not once, not successfully." Emma nodded, the tears flowing freely now as she confirmed her father's worst fears. "Dr. Reynolds says they are too far developed for intervention. We have no choice but to let nature take its course and hope for the best. But Dad, there is something else, something that makes this even more incredible." She paused, remembering the look of wonder on the veterinarian's face as he studied the ultrasound images. "Both foals are healthy. They are both large and well-formed. Dr. Reynolds has never seen anything like it." Thomas rose from his chair and walked to the window, his gaze drifting toward the barn where Athena waited in her stall. His shoulders seemed to sag under the weight of this new revelation, and Emma could see the conflict playing out across his weathered features. On one hand, the possibility of 2 healthy foals from Athena's bloodline could be the miracle they needed to save Meadowbrook. On the other hand, the risks involved were enormous, and the thought of losing Athena was more than either of them could bear. "What did Michael say about her chances?" Thomas asked without turning from the window. "Give it to me straight, Emma. I need to know what we are dealing with." Emma stood and joined her father at the window, slipping her arm through his as they looked out at the farm together. She told him everything Dr. Reynolds had explained, holding nothing back. She spoke of the dangers of twin pregnancies, the complications that could arise during delivery, the strain that carrying 2 foals would place on Athena's massive frame. But she also spoke of the hope that the veterinarian had expressed, the possibility that this could be one of those rare cases where everything aligned perfectly. Thomas listened in silence, his jaw tight with emotion. When Emma finished speaking, he turned to face her, and she saw something in his eyes that surprised her. It was not defeat or despair, it was determination. The same fierce determination that had kept Meadowbrook Farm running through droughts and recessions, through loss and heartbreak. Your mother loved that horse, he said quietly. She always said there was something special about Athena, something that set her apart from every other animal on this farm. I think she was right. I think Athena was meant for something extraordinary. Emma felt a surge of hope rise in her chest at her father's words. You think she can do this? You think she can carry them both safely? Thomas placed his hands on Emma's shoulders and looked directly into her eyes. I think that if any mare in this world can beat the odds, it is Athena. But she is going to need us, Emma. She is going to need everything we have got. We are going to have to fight for her every single day until those foals are safely on the ground. Are you ready for that? Emma thought of Athena standing in her stall, her dark eyes full of trust and gentle patience. She thought of all the years they had spent together, all the moments of joy and sorrow they had shared, and she knew, without a shadow of doubt, what her answer would be. I am ready, she said firmly. For Athena, I would do anything. The days that followed Dr. Reynolds' shocking discovery transformed Meadowbrook Farm into something resembling a medical facility. Emma threw herself into preparing for every possible scenario, researching twin pregnancies and horses until her eyes burned from staring at her computer screen late into the night. She ordered specialized supplements to support Athena's increased nutritional needs, arranged for extra bedding to cushion the mare's joints against the growing weight she carried, and converted the largest stall in the barn into a private sanctuary where Athena could rest undisturbed. Dr. Reynolds began visiting the farm twice a week for monitoring sessions, each examination bringing a mixture of relief and renewed anxiety. The twins continued to develop at a remarkable pace, their heartbeats strong and steady on the ultrasound monitor. But with each passing week, the strain on Athena's body became more apparent. Her movements grew slower and more deliberate, and she spent increasing amounts of time lying down in her stall, her massive sides heaving with the effort of simply existing. Emma watched these changes with a heart full of worry, wondering how much more her beloved mare could endure. Word of Athena's condition spread through the local horse community like wildfire. At first, Emma resented the intrusion into what she considered a private family matter. Strangers began showing up at the farm gates, hoping to catch a glimpse of the famous mare carrying her impossible burden. Local newspapers sent reporters asking for interviews, and Emma's phone rang constantly with calls from breeders and veterinarians wanting to know more about this medical marvel. She turned them all away, fiercely protective of Athena's peace and privacy. But not everyone who came calling had good intentions. 3 weeks after the twins were discovered, a sleek black car pulled up the gravel driveway, and a man in an expensive suit stepped out with the confident air of someone accustomed to getting exactly what he wanted. His name was Richard Blackwell, and he represented one of the largest horse breeding operations on the East Coast. Emma recognized the name immediately. Blackwell Farms was known throughout the industry for their aggressive tactics and their willingness to pay any price for exceptional bloodlines. Emma met him on the front porch, her arms crossed defensively over her chest as he approached with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Miss Harrison," he began, extending a hand that Emma reluctantly shook, "I have heard remarkable things about your mare. A successful twin pregnancy would be unprecedented. The scientific value alone is immeasurable, not to mention the breeding potential of 2 healthy foals from such an exceptional dam. I am prepared to make you an offer that would solve all of your financial problems." The words hung in the air, tempting and dangerous. Emma knew exactly how much trouble the farm was in. She had seen the stack of bills on her father's desk, the foreclosure notices that he tried to hide from her. Blackwell's offer could save everything they had worked so hard to protect. But as she listened to him speak about Athena as though she were nothing more than a commodity, a breeding machine to be exploited for profit, Emma felt something harden inside her chest. "Athena is not for sale," she said firmly, her voice carrying a steel that surprised even herself. "Neither are her foals. This is our farm, our family, and our horse. Whatever happens, we will face it together." Blackwell's smile faltered for just a moment before he regained his composure. He reached into his jacket and produced a business card, pressing it into Emma's reluctant hand. "Think about it, Miss Harrison. My offer will not last forever. And from what I understand, time is not exactly on your side. Emma watched him drive away, his words echoing in her mind long after the dust from his tires had settled. She knew he was right about one thing. Time was running out, in more ways than one. Athena's due date was approaching faster than any of them were prepared for, and the financial pressures on the farm showed no signs of easing. That night, she found her father sitting alone in the barn, his hand resting gently on Athena's neck as the mare dozed in her stall. "A man came by today," Emma said quietly, settling onto a hay bale beside him. "He wanted to buy Athena and the foals. Offered enough money to save the farm twice over." Thomas did not look up, his eyes fixed on the slow rise and fall of Athena's breathing. "And what did you tell him?" Emma leaned her head against the wooden stall door, watching the mare sleep. "I told him no. I told him Athena was not for sale." She paused, suddenly uncertain. "Did I do the right thing, Dad? Maybe I should have at least considered it. Maybe saving the farm is more important than my feelings." Thomas finally turned to face his daughter, and in the dim light of the barn, Emma could see tears glistening in his eyes. "Your mother would have been so proud of you," he said softly. "She always said that some things matter more than money. Athena trusted us with her life, and those babies growing inside her are trusting us too. If we sell them to someone who only sees dollar signs, we betray everything this farm has ever stood for." Emma felt the weight of her decision lift slightly from her shoulders at her father's words. But the practical concerns remained, pressing down on them both like a physical force. "How are we going to make it work?" she asked. "The bills keep piling up, and Dr. Reynolds' visits alone are costing us a fortune. I do not know how much longer we can hold on." Thomas reached over and took his daughter's hand, squeezing it with a strength that belied his years. "We will find a way. We always have. This farm has survived worse than a few overdue bills, and when those foals are born healthy and strong, the whole world will see what Athena is capable of. That will be worth more than any amount of money Blackwell could offer." As if she understood every word, Athena stirred in her sleep, her great head turning toward Emma and Thomas with eyes half open. In that moment, surrounded by the familiar smells of hay and horse, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose settle over her heart. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family, and somehow, against all odds, they would find a way to survive. The 8th month of Athena's pregnancy arrived with an unexpected cold snap that sent temperatures plummeting across the Kentucky countryside. Emma spent those freezing nights in the barn, wrapped in blankets and positioned just outside Athena's stall where she could monitor the mare's every breath. The veterinarian had warned them that the final weeks would be the most critical, and Emma refused to leave anything to chance. She had installed a baby monitor in the stall, its soft glow casting shadows across the barn walls as she kept up her vigil through the long, dark hours. Athena's condition had stabilized somewhat in recent weeks, though stable was a relative term when discussing a mare carrying 2 full-sized foals. Her belly had grown to almost comical proportions, stretching her white coat tight across the enormous burden she carried. Walking had become a laborious process, each step requiring careful planning and considerable effort. Yet, despite her obvious discomfort, Athena maintained the gentle disposition that had always defined her character. She still nickered softly when Emma entered the barn each morning, still pressed her velvet nose against Emma's palm in search of the apple slices she had come to expect. Dr. Reynolds had begun visiting daily now, his examinations growing longer and more thorough as the due date approached. During one such visit, he pulled Emma aside with an expression that made her stomach clench with familiar anxiety. "The foals are positioned well," he reported, keeping his voice low so as not to disturb Athena. "That is the good news. The concerning news is that they are both larger than I had anticipated. Delivering 2 foals of this size is going to be extremely challenging, even for a mare as strong as Athena." Emma absorbed this information with the stoic acceptance she had developed over the past months. She had learned to take each day as it came, celebrating the small victories while bracing herself for potential setbacks. "What can we do to prepare?" she asked, her pen poised over the notebook she now carried everywhere. Dr. Reynolds outlined a detailed plan that included everything from emergency contact numbers to the specific equipment they would need on hand during the delivery. He spoke of possible complications with clinical precision, but Emma could see the worry behind his professional demeanor. That evening, as Emma made her rounds checking on all the animals, she was surprised to find her father already in the barn. Thomas stood before Athena's stall, his weathered hands gripping the wooden rails as he gazed at the mare with an intensity Emma rarely saw in him. She approached quietly, not wanting to disturb whatever private moment was passing between the old man and the horse. But Thomas sensed her presence and turned, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I was just remembering the day she was born," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Your mother was there, you know. She stayed up all night waiting for Athena's dam to deliver. When that little white filly finally came into the world, your mother took one look at her and said she was going to be something special." Thomas paused, a sad smile crossing his weathered features. She was right. She was always right about horses. Emma moved to stand beside her father, her shoulder pressing against his in silent support. "I wish Mom could see her now," she whispered. "She would be amazed by what Athena is doing." Thomas nodded slowly, his gaze returning to the mare who dozed peacefully in her stall. "Sometimes I think she can see her. Sometimes I think your mother has been watching over this farm, over all of us, every single day since she left. And I believe she sent us this miracle, these twins, to remind us that hope is never truly lost." The words settled over Emma like a warm blanket, bringing comfort she had not realized she needed. She thought of her mother often during these long nights in the barn, remembering the gentle hands that had taught her to braid a horse's mane, the patient voice that had explained the mysteries of birth and life and death. Her mother had loved Athena with the same fierce devotion that Emma now felt, and somehow, knowing that her mother's spirit might still be present, gave Emma the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the days counted down toward Athena's due date, the atmosphere at Meadowbrook Farm grew increasingly tense. Every sound from the barn sent Emma running, her heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and fear. She barely slept, barely ate, her entire existence focused on the magnificent mare and the precious lives she carried. The farm's financial troubles faded into the background, seeming almost trivial compared to the monumental event that was approaching. Bills went unpaid, phone calls went unanswered, and the outside world ceased to exist beyond the boundaries of Athena's stall. Sarah, Dr. Reynolds' assistant, had taken to stopping by the farm during her off hours, bringing food that Emma often forgot to eat, and offering companionship during the lonely night watches. The young woman had developed her own attachment to Athena, and her presence became a source of comfort for Emma during those anxious final days. Together, they would sit outside the stall, speaking in hushed voices about everything and nothing, their eyes never straying far from the sleeping mare. One night, as a fierce thunderstorm raged outside the barn walls, Sarah asked the question that Emma had been avoiding for months. What happens if things do not go well? What happens if we lose them? Emma was silent for a long moment, listening to the rain hammering against the roof and the distant rumble of thunder. She watched Athena shift restlessly in her stall, disturbed by the storm, and felt a wave of protective love wash over her heart. "Then we will have loved them with everything we had," she finally answered, her voice steady despite the tears that threatened to fall. "We will have given them our best, and that is all any of us can do. But I believe in Athena. I believe in those babies, and I believe that sometimes when we pour enough love into something, miracles can happen." As if in response, Athena lifted her great head and looked directly at Emma, her dark eyes shining with an intelligence that seemed almost supernatural. In that moment, Emma could have sworn she saw something there, a promise, a determination, a mother's unshakable will to bring her children safely into the world. The morning of March 15th dawned gray and heavy with the promise of rain. Emma had finally succumbed to exhaustion sometime around 3 a.m, her body collapsing onto the cot she had set up just outside Athena's stall. She dreamed of her mother, of gentle hands brushing through her hair, and a soft voice telling her that everything would be all right. The dream was so vivid, so comforting, that when she woke to the sound of Athena's distressed whinny, It took her several seconds to separate reality from the lingering warmth of her subconscious. But the moment her eyes focused on Athena's stall, all traces of sleep vanished instantly. The mare was pacing in tight circles, her movements agitated and uncoordinated in a way Emma had never seen before. Sweat darkened her white coat, and her breathing came in harsh, labored gasps that echoed through the silent barn. Emma scrambled to her feet, her heart hammering against her ribs as she rushed to the stall door. One look at Athena's condition told her everything she needed to know. The twins were coming, and they were coming now. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone and dialed Dr. Reynolds' emergency number. The veterinarian answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the early hour. He listened as Emma described Athena's symptoms, and she could hear him already moving, already preparing to make the drive to Meadowbrook. 20 minutes, he promised. Keep her calm, keep her moving if she wants to move, and do not let her lie down until I get there. Emma ended the call and immediately dialed her father, who answered with the groggy confusion of deep sleep. Within minutes, Thomas was in the barn, his face pale but determined as he took in the scene before him. Together, father and daughter worked to keep Athena calm, speaking to her in soothing tones while carefully monitoring her condition. The mare seemed to draw strength from their presence, her panicked movements gradually slowing as she recognized the familiar voices of the humans she trusted most. But even as her agitation eased, the physical signs of impending labor continued to intensify. The next 20 minutes felt like an eternity. Emma kept one eye on Athena and the other on the barn door, willing Dr. Reynolds' truck to appear. When the headlights finally swept across the yard, she nearly collapsed with relief. The veterinarian burst through the barn doors with Sarah close behind, both of them loaded down with medical equipment and supplies. Dr. Reynolds took one look at Athena and nodded grimly. "It is time," he confirmed. "Everyone needs to be ready. This is going to be the most challenging delivery any of us have ever witnessed." The next several hours blurred together in Emma's memory, a chaotic sequence of fear and hope and desperate action. Athena labored with a determination that broke Emma's heart, her powerful body straining against the impossible task of bringing two lives into the world. Dr. Reynolds worked with focused intensity, his hands steady even as his brow glistened with sweat. Sarah moved like a shadow, anticipating his needs before he voiced them, her quiet competence a reassuring presence in the midst of the storm. There were moments when Emma was certain they would lose everything. Moments when Athena's strength seemed to fail, when her breathing became so labored that Emma feared each exhale would be her last. During those terrifying minutes, Emma knelt beside her beloved mare, her forehead pressed against Athena's sweat-soaked neck, whispering words of encouragement that she was not sure the horse could even hear. "You can do this," she repeated like a prayer. "You are the strongest, bravest mare in the world. Your babies need you. I need you. Please, Athena, please keep fighting." And Athena did fight. With every ounce of strength in her massive body, she fought to bring her children safely into the world. When the first foal finally emerged just after noon, a collective gasp filled the barn. It was a filly, her coat a stunning dappled gray that would lighten to match her mother's pristine white as she matured. She was larger than any newborn foal Emma had ever seen, her long legs already kicking with surprising vigor as Dr. Reynolds cleared her airways and confirmed that she was breathing on her own. But there was no time for celebration. The second foal was still waiting to be born, and Athena's energy was fading fast. Dr. Reynolds worked with renewed urgency, his voice sharp as he issued instructions to Sarah and Thomas. Emma remained at Athena's head, her hands stroking the mare's face as she urged her to keep going. "Just one more, girl. Just one more, and it will all be over. You are almost there. I promise you are almost there." The second delivery was harder than the first. The foal was positioned awkwardly, and Dr. Reynolds had to intervene manually to guide it into the proper alignment. Athena screamed in pain, a sound that would haunt Emma's nightmares for years to come. But even in her agony, the mare refused to give up. She pushed with everything she had left, her body trembling with the effort, until finally, blessedly, the second foal slid into the world. It was a colt, his coat a rich chestnut that stood in striking contrast to his sister's gray. For a heart-stopping moment, he lay motionless on the straw-covered floor, and Emma felt the world tilt beneath her feet. But then Dr. Reynolds was there, his hands working quickly to stimulate the newborn, and suddenly the colt was breathing, was moving, was crying out in the thin, reedy voice of new life. Emma burst into tears, the tension of months of worry finally releasing in a flood of emotion that she could not control. Athena lay exhausted in her stall, her breathing slowly returning to normal as she processed what had just occurred. Her dark eyes found Emma through the chaos, and in that gaze, Emma saw something that words could never adequately describe. Pride, relief, love. The mare had done the impossible. She had brought 2 healthy foals into the world against odds that should have been insurmountable. And as Emma knelt beside her, cradling her beautiful head in her arms, she knew that this moment would be etched in her heart forever. Dr. Reynolds stepped back from the newborns, a rare smile breaking across his usually serious face. He looked at Emma and Thomas, then at the 2 foals who were already attempting their first wobbly movements toward their mother. "I have practiced veterinary medicine for over 30 years, he said, his voice thick with emotion, "and I have never witnessed anything like what just happened in this barn. These foals, this mare, they are nothing short of miraculous." The hours following the birth were a delicate dance between celebration and caution. Dr. Reynolds remained at the farm throughout the afternoon, monitoring both Athena and her newborn foals with the vigilance of a man who understood just how fragile new life could be. The twins, despite their miraculous arrival, were not yet out of danger. Twin foals often struggled in their first days, their bodies competing for resources that nature had designed for a single offspring. Every feeding, every movement, every breath was carefully observed and documented. Emma refused to leave the barn, even when her father gently suggested she get some rest. She sat in the corner of Athena's expanded stall, her back against the wooden wall, watching as the 2 foals took their first tentative steps toward their mother. The filly, whom Emma had already begun calling Aurora in her mind, was the more adventurous of the 2. She wobbled on legs that seemed impossibly long, falling and rising and falling again with a determination that reminded Emma so much of Athena herself. The colt was more cautious, hanging back and observing his sister's attempts before making his own. He had a thoughtful quality about him, even at just a few hours old, that made Emma smile through her exhaustion. She had not yet chosen a name for him, wanting to wait until his personality revealed itself more fully. But watching him now, the way he studied the world around him with those large, intelligent eyes, she knew he would be something special. Athena, despite her obvious exhaustion, was proving to be an exceptional mother. She nickered softly to her foals, encouraging them with gentle nudges when they stumbled, positioning her body so they could reach her to nurse. The mare seemed to understand instinctively how to divide her attention between the 2 newborns, never favoring one over the other. It was as though she had been preparing for this moment her entire life, as though motherhood was simply an extension of the gentle, nurturing spirit she had always possessed. As evening fell and the barn grew dim, Sarah finally convinced Emma to eat something. She had brought a basket of sandwiches and fruit from her own kitchen, and the 2 women shared the simple meal while sitting outside Athena's stall. The foals had finally settled, curled together in the soft bedding beside their mother, their small bodies rising and falling in the synchronized rhythm of sleep. It was the most peaceful scene Emma had witnessed in months. "I still cannot believe it actually happened," Sarah said quietly, her eyes fixed on the sleeping family. "When I first saw that ultrasound, when we realized there were 2 of them, I thought for sure we would lose at least one, maybe all 3. But look at them now." She shook her head slowly, a smile of wonder crossing her face. "It is like something out of a fairy tale." Emma nodded, too emotionally drained for words. She thought about all the sleepless nights, all the worry and fear that had consumed her since that fateful afternoon when Dr. Reynolds had discovered the twins. She thought about the financial pressures that still loomed over the farm, the stack of unpaid bills that waited on her father's desk. None of that seemed to matter anymore. In this moment, surrounded by the warmth of the barn and the soft sounds of sleeping horses, Everything felt exactly as it should be. The next few days brought their own challenges. Aurora, the filly, developed a slight respiratory issue that required additional medication and round-the-clock monitoring. Emma barely slept, dividing her time between caring for the foals and ensuring that Athena maintained her strength through proper nutrition and rest. Dr. Reynolds visited twice daily, adjusting treatments and offering reassurance that Aurora's condition was not uncommon in newborn foals and would likely resolve on its own. The colt, meanwhile, was thriving. He had taken to nursing with enthusiasm, his appetite seemingly endless as he worked to make up for the resources he had shared with his sister in the womb. Emma finally settled on a name for him on his third day of life, inspired by the way he would stand at the edge of the stall each morning, watching the sunrise with apparent fascination. She called him Phoenix, a name that seemed to capture both his fiery chestnut coloring and the miraculous nature of his birth. Word of the successful twin birth spread quickly through the horse community, and this time, Emma did not turn away the attention. She understood now that Athena's story had the power to inspire others, to demonstrate what was possible when love and determination combined with expert care. Journalists came and went, their cameras capturing images of the beautiful mare and her two healthy foals. Veterinary students arrived in small groups, eager to learn from Dr. Reynolds about the techniques that had made the delivery successful. Among the visitors was someone Emma had not expected to see again. Richard Blackwell appeared at the farm on the fourth day after the birth, his expensive suit replaced by more casual attire that did nothing to diminish his air of wealth and power. Emma met him at the barn door, her body positioned protectively between him and the stall where Athena rested with her foals. "I heard the news," Blackwell said, his voice carrying a note of genuine admiration that surprised Emma. "Two healthy foals, both thriving. I have to admit, Miss Harrison, I did not think it was possible. You have accomplished something truly remarkable here." Emma studied his face, searching for the calculating businessman she had encountered months earlier. But all she saw was a man humbled by something greater than profit margins and breeding potential. "I did not do it alone," she replied carefully. "Athena did the impossible work. Dr. Reynolds and his team provided expert care. My father kept this farm running when I was too focused on the barn to help. This was a team effort, Mr. Blackwell. Every single person who believed in Athena played a part in this miracle." Blackwell nodded slowly, his gaze drifting past Emma to where Athena stood nursing her foals. "I came here to make you another offer," he admitted. "But standing here now, seeing what you have created, I realize that some things cannot be bought." He paused, reaching into his jacket pocket. "Instead, I would like to make a donation to your farm. No strings attached. Consider it an investment in the future of exceptional horse breeding." Emma stared at the check in Blackwell's outstretched hand, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. The number written there was staggering, enough to pay off every debt the farm had accumulated and still leave a substantial cushion for future operations. Her first instinct was to refuse, to maintain the fierce independence that had carried her family through generations of hardship. But something in Blackwell's expression made her pause. This was not the same man who had stood on her porch months earlier, speaking of Athena as though she were nothing more than a commodity. "Why?" she asked simply, making no move to accept the check. "Why would you do this with no strings attached? What do you gain from helping us?" Blackwell lowered his hands slightly, a wry smile crossing his distinguished features. "I have spent my entire career acquiring the best horses, building the most impressive breeding operation in the country. But somewhere along the way, I forgot why I started in the first place. I forgot the love that drew me to these animals as a boy." He gestured toward the stall where Athena stood watching them, her dark eyes alert and knowing. "What you have here, what you and your family have built, it reminds me of everything I lost chasing success. Consider this my way of investing in something pure." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes as she finally reached out and accepted the check. She did not know what to say, how to express the gratitude that swelled in her chest. But Blackwell seemed to understand. He simply nodded, gave Athena one last admiring look, and walked back toward his car without another word. Emma watched him go, clutching the check that represented not just financial salvation, but something far more valuable: validation. Recognition that what they had accomplished at Meadowbrook Farm mattered. The weeks that followed were filled with joy and wonder as Aurora and Phoenix grew stronger with each passing day. Aurora's respiratory issues cleared up completely by the end of her first week, and soon she was racing around the paddock with the boundless energy of a healthy foal. Phoenix remained the more contemplative of the two, often standing beside his mother and observing the world with those thoughtful eyes that had captivated Emma from his first moments of life. But when he did run, he ran with a power and grace that hinted at the magnificent horse he would become. Athena recovered remarkably well from the ordeal of delivering twins. Her coat regained its lustrous shine, and her appetite returned with vigor as her body worked to produce enough milk for 2 hungry foals. She seemed to take immense pride in her offspring, watching over them with a protective devotion that touched everyone who witnessed it. When the foals wandered too far from her side, she would call them back with a sharp whinny that left no room for argument. When they tired from their play, she would position herself so they could rest in her shadow, sheltered from the sun and safe from any perceived danger. Emma spent every spare moment with the little family, documenting their progress in a journal that had grown thick with observations and photographs. She recorded Aurora's first successful gallop across the paddock, Phoenix's first tentative exploration of the world beyond the barn. She wrote about the way the twins communicated with each other, a silent language of nickers and nudges that seemed to exclude even their mother at times. They were developing their own bond, these miracle siblings, a connection forged in the cramped quarters of Athena's womb and strengthened by every day they spent together in the outside world. The media attention that had surrounded the birth eventually faded, but its impact on Meadowbrook Farm proved lasting. Inquiries came in from breeders across the country, all eager to learn more about Athena's bloodline and the possibility of future offspring. Emma handled each request carefully, vetting potential buyers with the thoroughness of a protective parent. She had learned from Blackwell's initial approach that not everyone who expressed interest in the farm's horses shared her values. Only those who demonstrated a genuine commitment to the well-being of the animals would be considered. Thomas, meanwhile, had experienced a transformation of his own. The successful birth and the subsequent media coverage had reinvigorated his passion for the farm in a way that years of financial struggle had nearly extinguished. He threw himself into improving Meadowbrook's facilities, using a portion of Blackwell's donation to repair aging fences, upgrade the barn's infrastructure, and create a dedicated space for veterinary procedures. The work seemed to restore years to his weathered frame, and Emma often caught him smiling to himself as he surveyed the improvements. One evening, as the summer sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Emma found her father sitting on the fence overlooking the main paddock. Athena grazed peacefully in the distance, her 2 foals playing nearby in the fading light. Emma climbed up to sit beside him, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. They simply watched the scene before them, absorbing the peace and beauty of everything they had fought so hard to protect. "Your mother would have loved this," Thomas finally said, his voice soft with memory. "She always believed that Athena was destined for something extraordinary. But I do not think even she could have imagined anything like this." He turned to look at his daughter, pride shining in his eyes. "You made this happen, Emma. You never gave up, even when everyone said it was impossible. Even when I had my own doubts. You believed in that horse when no one else did." Emma leaned her head against her father's shoulder, feeling the familiar comfort of his presence. "We made it happen together, Dad, all of us. Athena, Dr. Reynolds, Sarah, you, even Blackwell in the end. This was never about one person proving something. It was about a community coming together for something greater than themselves." Thomas nodded slowly, wrapping his arm around his daughter's shoulders. "That is what Meadowbrook has always been about," he agreed. "Community, family, taking care of each other and the animals who depend on us. Your mother understood that better than anyone. And now, thanks to you and Athena, the whole world understands it too." As if she had heard her name, Athena lifted her head and looked toward the fence where father and daughter sat watching. Aurora and Phoenix paused their play, following their mother's gaze with curious eyes. In that moment, the connection between humans and horses felt almost tangible, a thread of understanding that spanned the distance between them. The summer months passed in a golden blur of growth and discovery. Aurora and Phoenix transformed from wobbly newborns into confident young horses, their personalities emerging more distinctly with each passing week. Aurora had inherited her mother's adventurous spirit, always the first to investigate new sights and sounds, always pushing the boundaries of whatever space she was given. Phoenix, true to his thoughtful nature, preferred to observe and analyze before acting, but when he committed to something, he did so with an intensity that took everyone by surprise. Emma had begun their early training, introducing them to halters and lead ropes with the gentle patience her mother had taught her so many years ago. Both foals responded well to her guidance, though their approaches to learning could not have been more different. Aurora attacked each new challenge with enthusiasm, sometimes getting ahead of herself in her eagerness to please. Phoenix took his time, processing each instruction carefully before executing it with precision. Together, they balanced each other, Aurora encouraging her brother to take risks while Phoenix tempered his sister's impulsiveness. Dr. Reynolds continued his regular visits to the farm, though his examinations had become more routine now that the immediate dangers of the twin birth had passed. During one such visit, he pulled Emma aside with news that made her heart swell with pride. "I have been tracking their development carefully," he explained, consulting his notes with a satisfied expression. "Both foals are not just healthy, they are exceptional. Their growth rates, their bone density, their overall physical development, everything is tracking well above average for their age. Whatever you are doing, Emma, keep doing it." The veterinarian's assessment confirmed what Emma had suspected from watching the twins each day. There was something special about these foals, something that went beyond the miraculous circumstances of their birth. They carried themselves with a natural grace and power that spoke of champions in the making. When Aurora ran, her movements flowed like water over stones, effortless and beautiful. When Phoenix stood at attention, surveying his domain, he radiated the quiet authority of a born leader. News of the twins' exceptional development attracted the attention of the wider equestrian community. Representatives from prestigious riding academies began reaching out, expressing interest in following Aurora and Phoenix's progress. A renowned horse trainer named Margaret Chen flew in from California specifically to observe the foals, and her reaction upon seeing them exceeded Emma's highest hopes. "In 30 years of training," she declared, watching Aurora and Phoenix play in the paddock, "I have never seen young horses with this much natural potential. These two are going to change the world." But Emma remained cautious about the future. She had learned from the long months of Athena's pregnancy that nothing in life was guaranteed, that even the most promising beginnings could lead to unexpected challenges. She focused on the present, on providing the twins with the foundation they would need to fulfill their potential, whatever form that might take. Each day brought new lessons, new opportunities for growth, and Emma approached each one with the patience and dedication that had become her hallmark. The farm itself continued to flourish under the renewed energy that the twins had brought. Thomas had hired additional help, young people from the local community who shared the Harrison family's passion for horses and commitment to ethical breeding practices. The staff expansion allowed Emma to divide her attention more effectively, ensuring that Athena and the twins received the specialized care they deserved while the farm's other operations continued to run smoothly. Among the new hires was a young man named Daniel, a recent graduate of the state's agricultural program who had grown up on a struggling farm much like Meadowbrook. He brought fresh ideas and boundless enthusiasm to his work, and Emma found herself increasingly relying on his insights as they planned for the farm's future. Daniel had a particular gift with Phoenix, able to coax the reserved colt out of his shell in ways that even Emma could not always manage. Watching them work together in the training ring, Emma felt the first stirrings of something she had not experienced in years: hope for a future that extended beyond mere survival. As autumn approached and the leaves began their transformation from green to gold, a letter arrived that would mark another turning point in Meadowbrook's story. It came from the National Equestrian Foundation, an organization that recognized excellence in horse breeding and training. The letter informed Emma that Athena had been nominated for their prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award, an honor that had never before been bestowed upon a mare who had successfully delivered twins. The ceremony would take place in November at the Foundation's annual gala in Louisville. Emma read the letter 3 times before the words fully sank in. She found her father in the barn, showed him the letter, and watched as tears streamed down his weathered cheeks. "Your mother," he managed to say through his emotion. "She always knew Athena would be recognized someday. She always knew our girl was special. But this is beyond anything we could have dreamed." The preparations for the gala became a family affair. Thomas insisted on buying Emma a new dress for the occasion, the first new clothing she had purchased for herself in longer than she could remember. Daniel offered to oversee the farm during their absence, assuring Emma that Athena's twins would receive the same level of care in her absence as they did when she was present. Even Sarah and Dr. Reynolds planned to attend the ceremony, wanting to witness the recognition of a horse they had helped bring through her most challenging moment. But as the date of the gala approached, Emma found herself thinking less about awards and recognition, and more about what Athena's journey truly meant. The mare had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, not through luck or chance, but through the combined efforts of everyone who had believed in her. She had shown the world that miracles were possible when love and dedication came together in service of something greater than individual ambition. Standing in the paddock one cool October evening, watching Athena graze peacefully while Aurora and Phoenix explored the fallen leaves around her, Emma felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. Whatever happened at the gala, whatever accolades or recognition came their way, this moment right here was the true reward. This family she had helped create, this legacy that would extend far beyond her own lifetime. This was what mattered. The grand ballroom of the Louisville Convention Center sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the soft glow of a candlelight as hundreds of guests gathered for the National Equestrian Foundation's annual gala. Women in elegant gowns and men in tailored suits moved through the space, their conversations a sophisticated murmur beneath the gentle strains of classical music. But for Emma Harrison, standing near the entrance in her simple blue dress, the glamour of the event faded into insignificance compared to the magnitude of what was about to happen. Thomas stood beside her, looking distinguished in a suit that had belonged to his own father, carefully preserved for occasions that demanded more than work boots and denim. Sarah and Dr. Reynolds had found seats near the front of the room, saving spaces for Emma and Thomas once the ceremony began. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, and Emma could feel curious glances directed her way from attendees who had read about Athena's miraculous story in the months following the twins' birth. The ceremony opened with speeches from Foundation officials, acknowledging the year's achievements in equestrian excellence across various categories. Emma listened with half an ear, her mind drifting back to the farm where Daniel was caring for Athena and the twins. She had called just before entering the ballroom, reassured by his report that all 3 horses were settled peacefully for the night. Still, part of her heart remained in that barn, as it always would. When the moment finally arrived for the Lifetime Achievement Award, the room fell silent. A large screen descended from the ceiling, and images of Athena began to fill its surface. There she was as a young filly, her white coat gleaming in the Kentucky sunshine. There she was in her prime, powerful and majestic, the pride of Meadowbrook Farm. And there she was during her pregnancy, her belly swollen with the twins who would defy every expectation. The final image showed Athena with Aurora and Phoenix, all 3 horses standing together in the golden light of a summer evening. The Foundation's president took the podium, her voice warm with genuine admiration as she spoke about Athena's accomplishments. She described the mare's exceptional bloodline, her gentle temperament, and her remarkable intelligence. But it was when she spoke of the twin pregnancy that her voice took on a tone of wonder. What Athena achieved, she declared to the assembled crowd, represents more than a medical miracle. It represents the triumph of the spirit over seemingly insurmountable odds. It reminds us that in the world of horses, as in life, the impossible is merely the untried. Emma felt her father's hand close around hers as her name was called to accept the award on Athena's behalf. The walk to the stage felt surreal, each step carrying her further from the struggling young woman who had once feared losing everything and closer to someone she was only beginning to recognize. When she reached the podium and turned to face the audience, she saw not strangers but kindred spirits, people who shared her love for these magnificent animals and understood the sacrifices required to care for them. She had prepared remarks, carefully written words that thanked everyone who had contributed to Athena's success. But standing there, looking out at the sea of expectant faces, Emma found herself setting those notes aside. What came instead was something more authentic, more true to the journey she had traveled. "This award belongs to Athena," Emma began, her voice steady despite the emotions swelling in her chest. "But it also belongs to everyone who believed in her when the odds said we should give up. It belongs to Dr. Michael Reynolds, who used his expertise to guide us through the most challenging delivery of his career. It belongs to his assistant, Sarah, who spent countless nights by my side, keeping watch over a mare who had become like family to us all. It belongs to my father, Thomas, who taught me that the measure of a person is not found in success, but in their courage to keep going when failure seems certain." She paused, gathering herself as memories flooded through her mind. "And it belongs to my mother, who is not here tonight, but whose spirit has guided everything we do at Meadowbrook Farm. She saw something special in Athena from the very beginning. She believed in miracles before the rest of us learned how to recognize them. Mom, wherever you are, this one is for you." The applause that followed was thunderous, but Emma barely heard it. She was thinking of Aurora and Phoenix back at the farm, sleeping peacefully beside their mother. She was thinking of all the challenges they had overcome and all the adventures still waiting ahead. She was thinking of the legacy that Athena had created, not just in her exceptional offspring, but in the hope she had inspired in people around the world who had followed her story. The gala continued late into the night, but Emma and Thomas slipped away before the final dance. The drive back to Meadowbrook took several hours, and they made most of the journey in comfortable silence, each lost in their own reflections on what the evening had meant. When they finally turned onto the familiar gravel driveway, the first light of dawn was beginning to paint the eastern sky in shades of pink and gold. Emma went straight to the barn, still wearing her blue dress beneath an old coat she had grabbed from the truck. Daniel met her at the door, confirming that all had been quiet through the night. She thanked him and sent him home to rest, then made her way to Athena's stall alone. The mare was awake, her dark eyes brightening as Emma approached. Aurora and Phoenix stirred at the sound of footsteps, lifting their heads to observe their favorite human with sleepy curiosity. Emma let herself into the stall and sat down in the fresh bedding, not caring about her dress or the hay that would surely cling to her hair. "We did it, girl," she whispered, reaching up to stroke Athena's velvet nose. "The whole world knows how special you are now, but I have always known. From the very first moment I saw you, I knew you were destined for something extraordinary." Athena lowered her head, resting it gently against Emma's shoulder in a gesture of trust and affection that needed no translation. Aurora and Phoenix moved closer, curious about this early morning visit, and soon Emma found herself surrounded by the three horses who had changed her life forever. As the sun rose over Meadowbrook Farm, painting everything in hues of gold and amber, Emma closed her eyes and let herself simply exist in this perfect moment. Whatever challenges the future might bring, she knew they would face them together. This family, this farm, this legacy of love and perseverance that would endure for generations to come. And somewhere, watching over them all, Emma's mother smiled. That completes the story. If you enjoyed this tale of Athena and her miracle twins, please like, share, and leave a comment telling me what touched your heart the most. I would love to know where in the world you are watching from and whether stories like this inspire you. Do not forget to subscribe so you never miss another incredible animal story. Until next time, may you always find hope in the impossible.